Questions?
Can you please send out the because list? I
Yes.
would love to see that.
I can send that out. Yes, and I'm sure there are actually even more. I'll look around to see if I can find a more complete list, but I'll send out that because list. Yes. Other questions? Man, I was clear this morning by God's grace.
Okay, so I'll ask the second question.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Verse 32, for God has bound everyone over to disobedience.
Yes.
So this probably goes back to the hardening of hearts thing. What is that actually referring to?
So my understanding of that verse is it's actually referring to Adam.
Oh.
When Adam sinned, all who followed were bound over to disobedience in sin. So actually, you could take that because list and keep going back a few generations to hit Adam as well. From the very beginning, this is the case. I just went back to Abraham because that's the history of Israel proper. But you could go all the way back to Adam. God has bound over all people to disobedience so that he could show them mercy. God made a world in which Adam would disobey. Again, Adam's disobedience, and even more than Israel's disobedience, led to all people being bound over to sin. But God has used that to his glory in showing his mercy to all. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I still have a hard time. This is not a question, this is just a statement.
Okay.
I emotionally have a hard time with God chose for you to sin and to cause good from that.
That's
Like,
actually a very good thing to bring up, and I'll speak to it briefly here. I don't know if I can say this succinctly enough, but I'll try. I think when it comes to that idea that God bound over all people to disobedience so that he might have mercy on all, I'm gonna use the oven again. So you're 3 years old. Mom says the oven's hot, don't touch it. You have a little bit of an understanding that the oven is hot and your mother cares for you, so you don't want to touch it. But if you do touch it, now you have a very firm, clear, unshakable understanding.
I learned that the hard way.
Yes, unshakable understanding that the oven is hot and it hurts when you touch it. And then that's when you're 3 years old. And now you carry that confidence, that certainty of that reality with you for the remainder of your living life. If we're blessed 70, 80, 90, 100 years. That's actually even, so when you think about it, that's a small percentage of your life that has great solidifying benefit of trust and understanding for the remainder of your life. We live 100 years. What is that in comparison to eternity?
Nothing.
Basically nothing, mathematically nothing. It is emotionally difficult to wrap our heads around that. And I don't argue that point. It is emotionally difficult to wrap our heads around the idea that God would allow his people to fall into sin just so that he could show mercy to us. We think to ourselves, well, wouldn't innocence be better than mercy? I would say to you, no. With innocence, you don't actually have, we people with free will, as we believe we have, wouldn't have that solid understanding of who it is God is without first understanding our own fallen, our own what is possible through departing from him, through touching the stove. That's how I wrap my head around it a bit in these years since asking that question for the first time. Because again, wouldn't innocence be superior to mercy? We often ask. That's essentially what the question is.
absolutely.
And I would say no. I'd say to have experienced mercy is actually you understand and trust in God more as a result of experiencing his mercy versus only having experienced innocence. And ultimately, for eternity, that's what we're aiming for. We're living. We are to have life with him in his presence forever. And what a more glorious existence that will be with a greater understanding of our God. So that's how I wrap my head around it. Again, emotionally, I'm not going to argue. In the moment, that is not something you would bring up to somebody to say, oh, your suffering doesn't matter. But that's something to wrap around what it is God is doing in this life. And I'm sure that I have only scratched the surface of his overall purpose in that. Other questions? That was a really quick Q&A today.